So this is the, I guess, third thing we're going to be doing, and this is, the files are located in your folder 7B, and you can see that different. It's a finished one, so you can just double click it. You don't have to open in Photoshop right now, and you can see this is what you're going to be putting together into this kind of composition. So that's going to be a reference image. Okay, so I would say put it on the side so you can actually see it. And having all those other images, we're going to be using those as well, and I'm going to show you how the selection tools work by doing this lab assignment. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to work from background JPEG. So this is our background, so go ahead and drag that into Photoshop. We're not going to do any changes on it, so it's going to be automatically called as saved as background. Now, I would either you can launch Bridge, or if you have it already open behind you, we're going to start by adding the table on the chair. Okay, so I'm going to open that up again. Just drag it to Photoshop. So we have it here, and we have to select it. Right? There are different kinds of selections that you can use for this, and I'm going to show you them. Now, this probably won't work. The first selection is the marquee. That won't work for this because it only allows you to select either rectangular or elliptical objects, and this is not very, it's neither of those. Okay. Next ones you can use are the lasso, which, you know, it will take some time, and if you do the first lasso tool, it will actually not come out as straight because you have to draw it yourself with a mouse. But I use it a lot for touching up. So if I need to touch up anything, I use my lasso tool for touch up. Right. Then the ones I would start with on this image would be either quick magic selection, magic wand. So I would do the quick selection tool. Allows you to quickly select the pixels. Now notice your brush size is pretty small, so you may need to increase that size using your, I'm just using my left bracket, so you can select it. So whenever your area is big, you can just do this. Now notice here and there, some other things got selected. You see that, the white? So that means my brush is getting too big. So you will be rotating the sizes between left or right. Now, if the middle of it, you notice here, it got selected, we're going to use another tool to deselect it. So don't worry about it right now. Just keep on clicking. And don't worry about the white in some areas being selected. Okay. So here's my selection pretty much. I'm not, obviously, I had some pieces, some white pieces that got selected. Okay. So what I'm going to do in order to deselect them, let me zoom out enough. And one thing is always get close to the image so you can actually see it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize. Now again, check if everything got really selected well. Okay. I'm going to minimize my brush. Make it small. And I'm going to see if that was going to help me deselect this area by holding my Option key on my keyboard. Option is removed from the selection. Shift adds to the selection. Okay. Look at that, it worked. But now it removed this too. So I'm like, let's try to add to the selection. Okay, there, it worked. Did you see what I did? I just click once in the middle, twice, and I click back on this one, and let me show you. So I minimized my brush, pretty small. Then I click on my white area. Oh, actually, I want to remove it. I need to hold the Option key when I do it. Okay. Remove all those pixels. Now, if it selected this, then you're just clicking on it, and that's it. So this is actually deselected. Now, on the side here, what you can also do, you can click and hold your mouse and draw. Like that, you see? And draw it. So what I did, I clicked and I moved my mouse up. So I can now check if my selection everywhere is good. Okay, so you want to have those squiggly lines going. And now here again, inside the cap. You see that here? Okay, again, hold the option to remove it. That's it. Look at that. It just did it for me. So this is how your line should look like. Let me zoom out so you can see it. Okay, once this is selected, I'm just going to move it over to my background image and position it in the bottom. And then I'm going to name my layer 1. Oh, don't double click on it. Double click on the text. Double click on the text and name the table. Okay. At this point, we will save our document because we don't want to lose anything. So go ahead and save it, save as. And for this one, you're gonna name it. You're gonna put it in the 7B, last name, first name, initial, lab 7, and you will name this as lab 7B. So this is the name you will add to the file. Make sure it's gonna be the same place as you have 2 images. Okay. So altogether, you'll be submitting 3 files to me. And go ahead and it's TIFF. Make sure it's TIFF. And then save and LZW compression. Okay, do okay. And okay. So the next selections, we're gonna look at some different things. The next one we're gonna bring in is the plate. So go ahead, navigate back to the. You can close this one. If you're done, you're happy, you can close it. You don't have to save it. And you can go ahead and go to the folder and get your plate and bring it over to Photoshop. Now, you probably think, okay, I can just click on it. Let me show you another selection you can use so you can get ideas of different selections we have. Go ahead, you can select the Elliptical Marquee. This is the one on top, nested right with rectangular marquee tool. It's the Elliptical Marquee. What's cool about those selections, you can actually modify them. So try to kind of make a circle-ish shape around it. Doesn't have to be perfect. If it's not fitting all the way yet, like mine isn't, you see mine is missing this side, we can actually transform that selection without affecting the image. So once you select it, next we're gonna go under select and towards the bottom, not all the way to the bottom, it's gonna say transform selection. So this way we are transforming the selection to kind of confine around the plate. Now try to be as close as possible to the edges. Don't go over the edges. If you need to move it, use your keyboard mouse keys. Okay? If you need to move anything, use your mouse. It's okay if your selection isn't perfect. Try not to go outside the rim too much. And you can rotate it too if you need to. Okay, so this is what mine is looking. Let me see. If you notice I'm outside the rim too much, you can just go ahead, minimize that. Okay. It won't be perfect, that's okay, because I don't want you to be perfect. I just want you to learn that selection. Okay. So don't worry if it's not all the way to the edge. This is just a practice tool, okay? Don't go outside of the plate. As long as you are inside, you'll be fine. So let me see. I need to drag the bottom part. Okay. That's close. Okay, so mine is kind of selected. Let me see if this one. Don't worry, because you cannot see the back later anyway. So if you are inside the rim a tiny bit, it's okay. Okay, just don't be too much outside of it. Try to be as close as possible. So now, with that, when you have it selected, go ahead and move it. Move the plate over. Uh-oh. Now, if we are inside the selection and it's not moving, go ahead. Remember, I didn't double click on it. So double click to accept the selection. Otherwise, it's going to move your selection for you. So undo, double click. In order for the selection to take place, you need to double click when you're done. Okay. Now use your move tool in your tools and then move it. Notice something about the plate? Is it kind of big. We need to transform it. We're gonna do two things. Notice in this image, the plate is also a different angle. So we have to do two things to this. We have to scale it and we have to screw it. Okay. So now under edit, we're gonna go first of all to free transform, Command T, and this is the one I use a lot as well. So free transform, edit. Hold your shift key on the keyboard and proportionally scale it down. Okay, scale it down. Make sure it fits kind of the. It's okay if it's a little bit off. Okay, so scale it down, make it fit on the table. And if you want this to come into effect, you need to double click again the image. Okay. Now what we're gonna do, the screw is funny. Sometimes it works on free transform if you just get it right, or you can go under edit, transform, and go under skew. So select this one, skew. Okay, we're gonna skew it. Click on it, and now we have to change the perspective. So we need to drag the edges out, kind of thing, because remember the plate is on the table, and then maybe the front one that needs to be done. So kind of try to arrange it so it looks like it's actually the plate is right on the table. So notice how mine is going. It's a little bit more out in the front and then a little bit back in the back. You see my skewing? Kind of like this. Right. So that's what you want to do. Once we have this image skewed correctly, you can go ahead and double click in the middle of it for the effect to take place. Alright. So we need to put something on that plate. We'll be putting a cake and a cupcake. We can start with a cupcake, but before we go, don't forget to name your layer. So I'm gonna name my layer plate. Alright. Don't forget that part. Important to name your layers. Now go ahead, once you do that, go ahead and close your plate that you worked on, and then go ahead and navigate to cupcake. That looks yummy. Alright, so let me put that into Photoshop, and we will be selecting it. Which selection could we use for this? Now there are several ones you can do. Some people under the lasso, and this is going to get a feel for the lasso tool. Now this is the most tedious if I just go around my hand, and notice how great that is. Okay, I'm going to do better than this. Polygonal won't work because this is not straight edges. A magnetic lasso where it just follows your movement. So it looks like it's working fine on top here, right? Because we have different shades of color, right? But notice what happens here. Like, be careful on the sides. May work. Yeah, it's working. So go ahead and choose magnetic lasso tool and go around your shape with your mouse like I just did. And then at the end, when you finish, you need to double click. Oh, okay, or click. Be careful not to deselect it. So it seems like the magnetic worked. So once I selected it, I've noticed here that's actually adding to my, like I have extra things in my selection on the bottom. You may not have enough. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. But this time, I'm going to trust my hand. If your hand sucks, you cannot do it straight, you can use other tool. But I'm going to go into my lasso tool. And for me, I don't know, maybe yours is a different thing. But I need to remove that space here. I'm going to be holding my option. My option will remove it. And I'm drawing around the edge. And look there, I fixed it. Now, if you want to get really close to the image so you can actually see it. And then option will remove it. Now, what happens if you went, like, you need to add something, right? Because this is actually a shadow, but it's part of the cupcake. If you need to add something, you hold Shift key, and then you can add to the selection. Okay? So, option removes it, Shift adds. And then I'm going to add a little bit here on the side, I see, this part. And I just like using the regular lasso tool when I do so. And just use my mouse. And I go very small increments on here. Okay, same thing on the side here. I can see this has to be fixed. Very tiny. I have very tiny. I want too much here. I have tiny fixes. My undo is my best friend because I always click on it. So. Alright, so I think, and here on the top, I see it kind of here has to be fixed a little bit, so I'm going to remove this part. Okay, so there, my cupcake is ready to be moved over. So that once the selection is done, I'm moving it over with my move tool to my size. That's a big cupcake, that'll be like a big cake. So let us scale it down, and you can just do Command T. That's just going to do freeform selection. Drag the corner, hold the shift key on your keyboard, so be proportionate. Okay, don't squish my cupcake. Don't make it this way. You want to scale it proportionally down. And double click in order for this to take effect. And when you're done, then you can just click on layer 1, because that's what it's called now, and name it cupcake. And we are done with this part.